second. How do you know my name? You wouldn't know where you're coming from. You wouldn't even know where you're going, he said to me. I said, I know where I got my name. I got my name from my mother and father. You did? Yes, I did. Just after I was born. I got my name from my mother and father. And he looked at me laughing. He said, oh, born! Can you remember it? Remember it? Well, I can't remember being born, but I remember being real small. Can any of you remember being born? I said I was born down. You can't remember it. I'll tell you where you got your name, he said to me. He pointed over these two mountains called the Anu, the Paps of Anu, these sacred mountains on the Cork-Kerry border. He says, look at the top of that mountain. He says, you were dropped off the top of there and told find your own way like the rest of them. He says, yes, you will. And when I was coming down the mountain, I met a farmer saving hay in the field. And he says, where are you coming from? And I said to him, I'm coming from the top of that mountain there, just born, trying to find my own way. He says, you're only joking me. You're only joking me. And the name Joe Keane stuck with me ever since. I said, wait a second. And did he tell me I was born under the head of a cabbage? And I turned around to confront him. I was there with just a bit of a stick. And I picked up the bit of a stick. And I says, I couldn't have been, but I can't remember being born. Of course, I put the boots on. I picked up the bag of plastic and the old stick. And I left that place with more troubles than I came there. And that evening I was very upset. I was sitting down at supper, having supper. I'd look up at my mother and look down at my father, and I'd see both of them, and there wasn't much talk going on around the table. And I was wondering, where are my real mother or father at all? Do you think they are? I'm not sure. And I was fairly troubled about it. And then a knock came to the back door. Knock, knock, knock. There was an old friend, his name Tom Coffey. And he says, hey Joe, are we going up to Knocknagree dancing? And there was a village about 10 miles from where I come from, Knocknagree, and on every Friday night there was always great music and dancing there. You know, whole cases, Irish, not like electric guitars now. We're talking about real music now. Well, sure enough, I says, anywhere out of this misery didn't I take off, and we went up to Knocknagree. And we went into the little bar, and we were sitting there, and there was great session going on, and down the back there's dancing. And sure enough, I went down, and, well, I was the lucky man, because there was a lady, Dan O'Connell's daughter, that used to be pulling pints. She was always working, but this evening she was outside the bar. And I says, oh, this is my chance to ask her to dance. Because of course you can't ask anyone working to dance when they're pulling pints. So, of course, for a pint. So sure enough, I was going to get my courage up anyway. I said, I'm going to have it. So I had a sup of stuff. And I went, and I said, okay, here I go, bit of courage, two, another bit of courage, and I was just about to put my third foot in the ground. And a big farmer's wife, about the size of a combine harvester, she came over and she said, come here, dearie, you're coming dancing with me. I said, what? Well, she grabbed a hold of me like she was carrying a bucket of milk. There was no letting go of it. And she said, come on, we're going dancing. Now, I used to know how to dance the Kerry set. That's an easy one. When the music started, and I said, is this the Kerry set? What? No, my head, it's not the Kerry set. She said, this is the jig set. The jig set? The jig set's the hardest one. I mean the jig set. Every time you touch your toe to the ground, it's a different toe. 10 every 10 seconds. So like, oh my goodness. I said, I'm not ready. Well, there was no choice. I was in the set, and the dance and the music started, and there we were dancing into the centre and out, and around in a circle and dancing. Well, sure enough, down that part of the country, when people, you know, the musicians, when they see somebody dancing, having a good time, sure, they only get more excited themselves. Well, I was trying to keep up with this woman. And I was there trying to concentrate. How many toes am I touching every 10 seconds? I was only doing 6 to every 10 seconds. And I was looking down, and this big farmer's wife, every now and again she was double tapping at home. She was flying, and she was taking me around the house, mind the dresser. Well, sure enough, the music started getting faster, and instead, what am I doing? I'm only doing 4, 3, 2, and there was a big swing, and I remember my 2 feet coming off the ground, and she grabbing a hold of me. And all of a sudden, I was there with no feet on the ground. And after having a sup of that stuff, which might be from the bottom of the barrel, as they say, my head started getting fierce dizzy. And when it started getting fierce dizzy, didn't I think about all the troubles I had collected in that plastic bag earlier on? And the old stick? And all the troubles that I was keeping in the back of my head came flying forward. And all of a sudden, my head got very heavy. And it sank. Well, me, with no feet on the ground, and my head getting very, very settled, the dance went on, and we danced into the crosses, and out into the stars, and we danced to the wheel of time. And me, no feet on the ground, until the dance came to an end. And I was hearing, "Oh, that's enough by you now, that's enough." I said, and all of a sudden she was lifting me up, and she put me back down on the ground. And you know where I had thought I was? I thought I was in my mother's arms. And the creature up there might have been there at home. That I was just born. So those fairies, you better watch out for them. Because sometimes they can play tricks on you. That's where I got my name. Well, there was a tailor living in the southwest of Ireland. He was a wonderful tailor, but the trouble was that nobody had any money to pay him. So he only got jobs fixing things and patching things. But he was a wonderful tailor. And one day, a gentleman passed his tailor shop and went in and looked at the work he was doing, and it was incredibly wonderful stitching. He says, "That's mighty fine work." He says, "I would like to order a whole suit of clothes from you, and I will collect them next Monday." And that he did. He went and he worked on this wonderful suit of clothes, and when he worked on this wonderful suit of clothes, the man came back a week later and says, "What mighty fine work. This suit is for the king. You're a very lucky man. I'm going to show it to the king and you'll get paid handsomely." And he showed it to the king. The king was thrilled with such fine work and sent the gent back saying, "Get me 6 more suits, one for each of the other days of the week." And the tailor went in when he got an order said, 6 more suits of clothes. Wow, this is more work than I've ever had in my life. Well, he stitched and stitched, and he made some beautiful suits with beautiful, lovely colours and tartans on it. And when he sent them off to the king was so happy that the man came back with a big bag of money and plonked it on the tailor's table. And the tailor never really had any money. He was only good at patching things and trading for stuff. And he looked into the bag and there was silver and gold coins, more money than he ever knew what to do with. And he went into his wife, Mara, and he said, Mara, look, all that money, what will I do with it? And she says, you've worked so hard all your life. You've put so much effort in going out every day, working, fixing things for people. Why don't you get something you really want? Really want? The tailor never really wanted too much, so he thought about it for a few days. And he came back, and after a few days he thought about it. He says, Mara, do you know what I've always wanted? I've always wanted a real nice overcoat for myself. And she says, go and make yourself the nicest overcoat. Well, he went and got the finest wool and wove the finest wool, and he made an overcoat that when he put it on, he was the finest looking gentleman in town. And when he put it on, everybody wanted to admire it. They said, oh, look at that coat. That's the most wonderful overcoat I've ever seen. Oh, look, what a coat, sir. Is it okay if I touch that wonderful coat? Oh, what a wonderful coat. And everyone felt blessed when they touched this wonderful coat. Well, he was getting so many compliments. Didn't he wear it every day of the week? And he even wore it some nights to bed. And he wore it so much, you know, that after some years, wasn't it getting a little raggedy? And he sort of said, a tailor like me, a good tailor like me, I can't be wearing an old coat like this. I suppose I'm going to have to get rid of it. You know, getting rid of your own nicest favourite piece of clothing is very difficult. So he took it off anyway, and he was about to throw it away, and he threw it away, and when he threw it away, he looked over, he saw there was something, he pulled it up, and inside the small of the back of the overcoat was the finest piece of material, and he got, look at this piece of material is as good as the day it was woven. This is a lovely piece of material. I think I'm going to make something with it. And that he did. He went off and he cut it up, and he made the nicest waistcoat you could ever see. And when he put the waistcoat on, everyone says, oh, what a waistcoat, look at that lovely waistcoat. And everybody admired it. No matter where he went, people admired it. And he wore it, and of course he wore it out. He was starting to wear it himself. He said, I'm going to have to get rid of this overcoat, or this waistcoat, but didn't it serve me well? And he was about to get rid of it, saying, oh, what an old coat, goodbye old waistcoat. And he threw it over, and as he just threw it in the pile of old rags, he looked back, and he said, wait a minute. And he pulled it up, and there was a piece up at the back. It was about this size. And he looked at this, and he pulled it. He says, this weave is as good as the day it was woven. I think I'm going to make something out of it. And he surely did. He cut it out, and he made the nicest looking pocket. I must say, a pocket, he put it on an old coat, but everywhere he went, people looked at that and said, oh, what a pocket you're wearing, there are lovely colours on it and all, and everybody wanted to touch it. If he went to the fair, if he went to the market, even when he went to the bathroom sometimes, everybody wanted to see that pocket. Well, anyway, sure enough, it was starting to get worn. And he said, I suppose a tailor like me couldn't be wearing an old worn pocket like this. I'm more than likely to have to get rid of it. So he cut it off with my old pocket. It was a good overcoat, and it was a good waistcoat, and it was a great pocket. And he threw it away. But just as he peeked over, he picked it up and he said, wait. And up in the top corner of the pocket, there was a piece of material like that. And he says, look at that wool. This is as good as the day it was woven. I've got to make something out of this. And he decided, what could I make out of this? And he went around and thought about it. Well, he made the nicest button you could ever see. This was a special button, and he put it on an old coat of his. And everywhere he went, people says, oh, look at that button. Can I touch it? Oh, and everybody started wearing it out almost. They went and they saw that button, and no matter where he went, it was the nicest looking button you could ever see. And they almost wore it out until the time came a tailor like me. How could I be wearing a button like this that's just so old? I might have to get rid of it. And he cut it off, and he threw it over. And as he threw it over, he looked at it, and he was saying, look, I got the button. And he said, what's this? And he started pulling a thread out of it. He says, look, this wool is as fine as the day it was woven. He started spinning it. And you know what he did? He spun a yarn. And the yarn is the story I'm telling you right now. The big 12-wheeler shook my bed. You can't stay here, the policeman said. You better get born in someplace else. Go along, get along, go along, get along, go. Move, shift. And one time I left home. I was sad with the world I was. I decided I'd go wandering, and that's what I did, off down to the south to Kerry and over the Cork border. And it was a rainy night and I had no place to go, if you know what I mean. And it was a dark, stormy night, and I was wet and cold and hungry. And I was walking along a country road, and inside in the bushes I saw a flicker from a fire. And sure enough, I decided I'd go in there, see if there was any warmth. And there was an old man sitting down, hunched over a nice warm fire in the rain. And right beside his fire was an old barrel-top wagon. One of those old gypsy wagons that you don't see no more. And I walked in carefully, and I stepped on a twig. And it was a dry one, and there's not that many of them in Ireland. And it snapped, And as soon as I did, that man took off to the other side of the fire. He says, "Who's there? Show your face. Show your face if you're real. Come out, who's there? Don't hide in the dark if you're living." "It's only me, sir. I didn't mean to startle you tonight. Who are you and what you doing out here this night?" "I'm lost and I have no place else to go." "Come show yourself." And I walked into the fire and felt the warmth of it. And he saw I wasn't there to do any harm. And he went and he made a cup of tea for me. And he came over with a big mug. And that tea was full to the brim. Full to the very brim. And he says, "There, lad, warm yourself. I wouldn't give you a drop less." Well, I don't know if you know what a warm cup of tea is in a cold night, but that warm tea warmed the inside of my heart, and I started to steam and dry out on that wet and cold night. And I was glad I met old man. I asked him his name, and he says, "You can call me Bill." And old Bill was there with his pony and his strap. And he says, "Where do you sleep this night?" And I says, "I have no place to sleep tonight." He says, "Well, there, maybe you can sleep under the wagon. I'll send the dog in there to keep you warm." And it's a big bag of spuds he put on one side and threw a few blankets under the old four-wheeled wagon. And there I laid, and the dog came in and laid beside me. And did I ever feel as happy that I had an old wet dog for warmth? So the next day, he came up and he greeted me in the morning with a cup of tea that was full to the brim. He says, "There, lad, I wouldn't give you a drop less." Well, I was glad of that cup of tea in the morning, for I didn't know where I was going. And he says, "What is it you're looking for, lad? Is it fame, like so many others?" And I says, "No, it's not, Bill. I'm just looking for the right direction in this life. I might be able to show you that." He says, "I was famous one time." And I says, "Yes, Bill. Famous for what?" "Oh, I was so famous. Everybody knew me." I says, "For what, Bill? Where was this?" "Oh," he says, "in the Glastonbury Rock Festival in England. I was famous for my toffee treats." "Yeah, toffee treats." "Yes," he says, "I was famous for my opium toffee treats." Well, everybody finds fame one way or the other, but it's not fame I'm looking for, old Bill. I says, "I'm only looking for the direction." And he says, "I will show you where to find it." And he brought me out on the side of the road, and the sun was shining in the sky. And he says, "I want you to put your finger up there and point into the sky." And he says, "Now turn around and look at the top of your finger." And he says, "When you see a shine from the star on top of it, you will know the direction to go." And that I did. I put my finger out, and sure enough, when it met the sunlight, I saw a shine in the top of it. And he says, "Have you got it?" I says, "I see it, Bill. I see it." And he says, "You follow that road, and follow it well, lad. Don't lose sight of it, and you will find your way there." Well, of course I did, and I followed it all right. I followed it over hills and across rivers and into brambles and all over the place. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and where did I find myself? I found myself at Ishnock, in the very centre of Ireland, and there a big stone stood, and I sat by that stone, and that first night I sat and I dreamt that we're in the centre of the world. And that night as I sat there, I felt my roots going down into the earth, and I felt the branches reaching up above. And I realised I found the greatest place to be. And there's no point searching anywhere else. if you know where the old sacred tree is. Yes, I found the center of time. I found that place that's hard to find if you're looking somewhere else. But if you look where you sit and where you stand, and you know your place in this world, that you have a voice that everybody can understand, then you know you will too find it. And that will make sure that you will never be on a lonely road, for you will always know that you stand in the center of time. Thank you very much, folks.